The massive hunting ship Voidstalker moved through space like a predator stalking its prey. Inside the great vessel, alien hunters from across the galaxy gathered in the main hall. Their voices filled the air with strange sounds and clicks as they spoke in their different languages. Captain Vexitar stood at the front of the room. His green-scaled skin caught the light as he moved. His yellow eyes looked at each hunter in turn. He was the leader of the Sketh people, a race that had been hunting for thousands of years. Today he would announce their next target. "Fellow hunters," Vexitar said, his voice deep and rough, "we have found our next prey." The room became quiet. Every alien hunter leaned forward to listen. These were the best killers from many worlds. They lived for the hunt. They lived for the chase. Hezrak clicked his mandibles together. He was from the Quilks race, looking like a giant insect with 6 arms and razor-sharp claws. His black eyes never showed mercy. "Tell us, Captain, what world will we visit this time?" Cressisin, a being made of living crystal, spoke in a voice like wind chimes. "I hope it offers better sport than the last world. Those creatures died too easily." Other hunters nodded and made sounds of agreement. They remembered their last hunt. The creatures on that world had no fight in them at all. Vexitar smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "This time will be different. We go to a small blue world called Earth. The creatures there are said to have something very strange." "What kind of strange?" asked Mordak, a hunter with 4 arms and purple skin. "They bond with other species," Vexitar said. "The main creatures, called humans, live with animals they call wolves. They claim these bonds make them strong." The room exploded with laughter. The sound was terrible, mixing roars, clicks, and screeches from different alien throats. Hezrak laughed so hard his whole body shook. "Bonds with animals? How weak can they be?" "Pathetic," Cressisin added, her crystal body glowing brighter with amusement. "Only the weak need others to survive." "In my people's history," said Vexitar, "we learned long ago that bonds are weakness. The strong survive alone. The weak die with their friends." More laughter filled the room. These hunters had conquered many worlds. They had never seen bonds between different species work in battle. To them it was just another sign that these earth creatures would be easy prey. "Tell us more about these wolves," Mordak said, wiping tears from his 4 eyes. Vexitar activated a hologram in the center of the room. It showed images of Earth that their scouts had taken. The hunters saw forests, mountains, and oceans. Then they saw humans and wolves together. "The wolves are 4-legged creatures with fur," Vexitar explained. "They hunt in groups, but they are small and weak compared to us. The humans keep them as companions. They feed them, care for them, and protect them." "And the humans think this makes them strong?" Hezrak asked. "Yes. They believe working together gives them power." The laughter started again, even louder this time. "I have seen many strange things in my long life," said an old hunter named Grixwall. "But this might be the strangest. Why would strong creatures protect weak ones?" "Because they are not strong," Vexitar answered. "They only think they are. When we hunt them, we will show them the truth. Bonds break. Friends die. Only the hunter survives." On Earth, far from the alien ship, Park Jiho sat by a campfire in the mountains of Korea. The night was cold and clear. Stars filled the sky above him, but he could not see the danger moving toward his world. Jiho was 35 years old with kind eyes and gentle hands. He studied wolves for his job. He loved learning about how they lived and how they worked together. For 3 months he had been camping in these mountains with his daughter. Park Somi was 7 years old with bright eyes and a curious mind. She loved the mountains as much as her father did. She was not afraid of the wild places or the creatures that lived there. Next to the fire lay Bayek, a large white wolf. His fur was pure white like fresh snow. His eyes were ice blue and very intelligent. Beck was not like other wolves. He had lived with Jiho and Somi since he was a small pup 6 years ago. Somi had her small hand buried in Beck's thick fur. The wolf was warm and soft, and she felt safe beside him. "Daddy, tell me the story about how you found Beck again." Jiho smiled. He had told this story many times, but Somi never got tired of hearing it. I was working in these same mountains. It was winter and the snow was very deep. I heard crying coming from a cave. And it was baby Beck, Somi said, even though she knew the story by heart. Yes, he was just a tiny pup and his mother was gone. He was cold and hungry and scared. I knew I should leave him for other wolves to find, but you couldn't leave him to die, Somi finished. No, I couldn't. So I brought him home. Your mother said I was crazy for bringing a wolf into our house. Somi giggled. Mama always said that, but she loved Beck too. Jiho's face became sad for a moment. Somi's mother had died 2 years ago in a car accident. Now it was just Jiho, Somi, and Beck. They were a small family, but they were strong together. Beck lifted his head and looked at Jiho. The wolf seemed to understand that they were talking about him. He made a soft sound, almost like he was talking. Beck. See? Beck knows we're talking about him, Somi said. He's so smart. Yes, he is. Beck understands us better than most people do. This was true. Over the years, Beck had learned to read their moods and their needs. When Somi was sad, he would rest his head in her lap. When Jiho was working hard, Beck would bring him water. When danger was near, Beck would warn them with a low growl. Daddy, why do some people think wolves are scary? Somi asked. Jiho thought about this question. Because they don't understand wolves. They think wolves are just wild animals that want to hurt people. But wolves are much more than that. They're loyal, smart, and they care about their families. Like Beck cares about us. Exactly like that. Above them, the stars continued to shine. Neither Jiho nor Somi knew that somewhere among those stars, alien hunters were planning to test everything they believed about loyalty and love. The fire crackled softly. Beck's breathing was slow and peaceful. Somi yawned and leaned against her father's shoulder. Time for bed, Jiho said gently. As they got ready to sleep in their tent, Beck took his usual place at the entrance. Even in sleep, he would guard his family. This was not something anyone had taught him. It was something he chose to do. In space, the Void Stalker continued its journey toward Earth. The alien hunters were still laughing about the bonds between humans and wolves. They could not imagine that these bonds might be stronger than anything they had ever faced. Soon they would learn the truth. 3 days after the alien hunters arrived on Earth, their game had begun. The Void Stalker hung in orbit like a dark moon, invisible to human technology. Below, small hunting parties moved through forests and cities, taking people for their twisted sport. Captain Vextar watched from his command center as reports came in from his hunters. The holographic displays showed captured humans in holding cells aboard the ship. Men, women, and children from different parts of Earth sat behind energy barriers, confused and afraid. The humans are even weaker than we expected, Hezrak reported, his insect-like body clicking with satisfaction. They cry when we separate them from each other. They beg us to let their friends go free. Vextar nodded. This was exactly what he had predicted. And their so-called bonds, do they make them stronger? No, Captain. They make them weaker. When we threaten one human, the others become desperate. They offer themselves in trade. It is pathetic. Cressisin's crystal body chimed as she spoke. I captured a human female with her young. She fought like a wild animal to protect the child, but she had no real strength. No claws, no armor, no weapons worth mentioning. What about these wolves we heard about? Asked Mordak. We have seen a few, Hezrak answered. Small creatures with fur and teeth. They run when they see us. Sometimes they bark, but they do nothing else. The alien hunters had not yet encountered what they were looking for. They wanted to see these famous bonds between humans and wolves. They wanted to test them, break them, and prove their own beliefs about strength and weakness. In the Korean mountains, Jiho woke to the sound of Bayek, growling low in his throat. The wolf stood at the tent entrance, his white fur bristling. His ice-blue eyes stared into the darkness beyond their camp. What is it, boy? Jiho whispered. Somi stirred in her sleeping bag. Daddy, is something wrong? Shh, stay quiet, Jiho said softly. He had learned to trust Beck's instincts completely. If the wolf sensed danger, then danger was real. Beck's growl grew deeper. His ears were flat against his head and his lips pulled back to show his teeth. This was not how he acted around normal forest animals. This was how he acted when something was very wrong. Jiho reached for his radio to call for help but found only static. He tried his cell phone. No signal. Even his GPS device showed nothing but blank screens. "Daddy, I'm scared," Somi whispered. "It's okay, sweetheart. Stay close to me and Beck." Strange lights began moving through the trees around. Their camp. The lights were blue and cold, nothing like flashlights or vehicle headlights. They moved too smoothly, floating through the air without making any sound. Beck's growling stopped. The silence was worse than the growling had been. 3 figures stepped into the light of their dying campfire. They were not human. Jiho's mind struggled to understand what he was seeing. The first creature was tall and covered in green scales. Its yellow eyes looked at them like they were insects. The second looked like a giant bug walking on 2 legs, with 6 arms that ended in sharp claws. The third was strangest of all, made of what looked like living crystal that glowed with its own light. "Interesting," said the scaled one in perfect English. "A human male, a human child, and one of the famous wolves." Jiho pulled Somi behind him. "What do you want?" "We want to play a game," the crystal being said, its voice like breaking glass. "We have heard stories about your kind, stories about bonds and loyalty. We want to see if they are true." The insect creature clicked its mandibles together. "Our captain will be pleased. We have found exactly what we were looking for." Beck stepped forward, placing himself between the aliens and his family. The wolf was big for his kind, but he looked tiny compared to these strange visitors. Still, he did not back down. His body was tense and ready to fight. "Ah, the wolf shows aggression," the scaled alien said. "But look how small it is. Look how weak." "It has no weapons except teeth and claws," added the crystal being. "Primitive tools for primitive creatures." Jiho's heart pounded, but he tried to stay calm. "We haven't done anything to you. Just leave us alone." "But that would ruin our fun," the insect alien said. "We came here to test your bonds to see how strong they really are." The scaled alien pointed a device at Somi. "We will take the young one first, then we will see what the adult and the animal do." "No!" Jiho shouted. That single word triggered everything that happened next. Beck launched himself at the scaled alien, with a speed that surprised all 3 creatures. The wolf's teeth found the alien's arm, tearing through scales and drawing dark blood. The alien roared in pain and anger. But Jiho did not run. Instead of fleeing to save himself, he grabbed a burning branch from the fire and swung it at the insect creature. The alien easily avoided the attack, but its surprise was clear. "Fascinating," it clicked. The human fights with the animal instead of running away. The crystal being shot some kind of energy beam that knocked Jiho to the ground. But as he fell, he called out to Bayek, "Protect Somi. Keep her safe." Beck released the scaled alien and immediately moved to guard the little girl. Even though he was outnumbered and outgunned, even though these creatures could easily kill him, the wolf placed himself in front of Somi and bared his teeth. Somi was crying, but she was not trying to run. Instead, she wrapped her arms around Beck's neck. "Don't hurt him. Please don't hurt Beck." The 3 aliens stopped their attack. They looked at each other with confusion in their strange eyes. "The child protects the animal," the crystal being said slowly. "And the animal protects the child," added the insect creature. "And the adult protects both," finished the scaled alien, looking at his wounded arm. This was not what they had expected. In their experience, when faced with superior force, creatures either fought for themselves or surrendered. They did not fight for others, especially not for members of different species. "Capture them all," the scaled alien decided. The captain must see this for himself. Energy beams shot from their weapons. Jiho felt his body go numb and heavy. He saw Beck collapse beside Somi, who fell a moment later. The wolf's last conscious act was to stretch his paw toward the little girl, trying to touch her even as darkness took him. "Bring them to the ship," the scaled alien ordered. But keep them alive. The captain will want to study this bond before we break it. As the aliens carried their unconscious prisoners away, none of them noticed the small pack of wolves watching from the deep forest. Beck's wild cousins had seen everything. They had smelled the strange scents and heard the sounds of battle. One of the wolves, an old female with gray fur, lifted her muzzle to the sky. Her howl cut through the night air, long and mournful. It was a song of anger and loss, a call for justice. The hunt was no longer one-sided. The aliens had made their first mistake. They thought they understood the bonds between humans and wolves, but they had only seen the beginning. Soon they would learn that some bonds go deeper than loyalty. Some bonds are written in blood and sealed with sacrifice, and some bonds, when broken, create enemies more dangerous than anything they had ever hunted. On board the Void Stalker, Captain Vexistar studied his newest prisoners through the energy barrier of their cell. Jiho sat against the wall with Somi curled in his lap, while Beck lay at their feet, still weak from the stun weapons. "This is very strange," Vextar said to his hunters. "Most creatures fight each other when they are afraid. These three move closer together." Hezrak clicked his mandibles. "The human keeps touching the animal. The young one talks to it like it can understand." "Maybe it can understand," said Cressisin. "But understanding does not make it strong." Vextar activated a control panel. "Let us test their famous bond, separate them." Energy fields appeared inside the cell, creating 3 smaller spaces. Jiho found himself cut off from Somi and Beck. All 3 prisoners immediately tried to reach each other, but the barriers held firm. "Daddy?" Somi cried, pressing her hands against the energy wall. Beck paced back and forth in his small space, whining and pawing at the barrier. His ice-blue eyes never left the little girl. "Interesting," Vextar observed. "Their distress increases when they cannot reach each other. This confirms they are weak." But the captain had made a crucial error. In his thousands of years of hunting, Vexter had learned to break his prey by isolating them. He believed that separation led to despair, and despair led to surrender. He did not understand that for Jiho, Somi, and Bayek, separation led to something else entirely. It led to anger. Down on Earth, the aliens had also made another mistake. They had taken their prisoners from the mountains, but they had not checked if anyone would miss them. Ranger Kim Do-yun found their abandoned camp the next morning. He had been looking for Jiho and Somi because they had missed their scheduled radio check. The cold ashes of their fire, the torn tent, and the strange burn marks in the ground told him something terrible had happened. But it was the wolf tracks that worried him most. Not just Beck's familiar paw prints, but dozens of others. A whole pack had gathered around the campsite after whatever happened here. Do-hyun had worked in these mountains for 15 years. He knew the local wolf population better than anyone. The pack leaders were Beck's own parents, who had accepted their son's choice to live with humans but still considered him family. As Do-hyun examined the scene, a low howl echoed through the forest. Then another. Soon the mountains rang with the voices of dozens of wolves. It was not a hunting song or a territorial call. It was something else, something that made the hair on Do-hyun's neck stand up. It was a war cry. Back on the alien ship, other human prisoners had begun to organize. The aliens had captured people from many different places, but they had made the mistake of putting them all together in large holding areas. Dr. Lee Min-jae, a former military officer turned teacher, had taken charge of one group. "They want us to be afraid," she told the others. "They want us to break down and give up. We will not give them what they want." "But how can we fight them?" asked Park Hyun-woo, a young man barely out of college. "They have weapons we have never seen. They are stronger than us." "Strength is not just about size or weapons," Min-jae replied. "We have something they do not understand. We work together. We protect each other. They think this makes us weak, but they are wrong." The captured humans began to share information. Those who had been taken from cities described the aliens' tactics. Those from rural areas knew about survival and tracking. Slowly, a plan began to form. In his private cell, Jiho was also planning. The energy barriers had a rhythm. flickering slightly every few minutes as they recycled power. He had noticed it because his job studying wolves had taught him to observe small details. He also noticed something else. Beck was not pacing randomly in his small space. The wolf was testing the barrier at specific points, using his nose and paws to find weak spots. "Smart boy," Jiho whispered. "You are figuring it out too." When Sami heard her father's voice, she looked up. Jiho made small hand signals, gestures he had taught her during their camping trips. "Be ready. Stay quiet. Trust Beck." Sami nodded and moved to the part of her cell closest to Bayek's barrier. On Earth, the wolf pack had found the aliens' landing site. The creatures from space had hidden their small ships in a valley, but they could not hide the strange smells and sounds from wolf noses and ears. The pack leader, a massive gray wolf named by rangers as Guriom, sniffed the air around the alien vessels. This was Bayek's father, and he could smell his son's scent mixed with fear and pain. Other scents told the story. Human fear, alien aggression, and something else that made Guriom's lips pull back in a silent snarl. The scent of his grandson, little Somi, who had played with him as a pup and given him treats from her small hands. The aliens had taken his family. This could not stand. Guriom howled once, a sound full of command and fury. The pack spread out around the alien ships, moving with deadly silence. They had hunted together for years. They knew each other's strengths and movements perfectly. But they also knew they needed help. These metal creatures were too dangerous to face with teeth and claws alone. The wolves began to run toward the nearest human settlement, their howls carrying a message that Ranger Do-Yun understood immediately. "Follow us, help us, fight with us." Aboard the Void Stalker, Vextar was growing frustrated. His prisoners had been separated for hours, but they were not breaking down as expected. Instead, they seemed to be communicating through the barriers using sounds and gestures. "Perhaps we should increase their discomfort," Hezrak suggested. "No," Vextar said slowly. "I want to try something else. Bring the wolf to the observation deck. Let the humans watch while we examine it." This was meant to be the breaking point. The captain believed that seeing their animal companion in pain would destroy the human spirit completely. But as Bayek was dragged from his cell, something unexpected happened. The wolf did not struggle or panic. Instead, he looked directly at Jiho and Somi, his blue eyes calm and steady. The message in that look was clear. "I am not afraid. Do not be afraid. We are still together, even when apart." And in that moment, Jiho understood something the aliens could never grasp. The bond between his family was not just emotional. It was tactical. It was strategic. It was unbreakable. The aliens thought they were breaking their prey apart. Instead, they were giving them exactly what they needed: information about the ship's layout, knowledge of guard rotations, understanding of alien weaknesses. Most importantly, they were giving them time to plan. Down on Earth, Ranger Do-Hyun followed, the wolf pack through the mountains. Behind him came other rangers, police officers, and local hunters. They had simple weapons and limited training, but they had something else. They had the wolves, and they had a cause worth fighting for. BQ. Hunt was about to be reversed. The attack began at dawn. Ranger Do-Hyun and his team of humans moved through the forest alongside Guriom's wolf pack. They had never fought together before, but somehow they moved as one unit. The aliens had not expected ground resistance. Their sensors were designed to track advanced technology, not simple weapons and forest animals. When the first alien guard fell to a ranger's rifle shot, the others were caught completely off guard. "Impossible," Hezrak clicked as alarms blared throughout the alien base. The local creatures should not be able to organize like this. On the Void Stalker high above, Captain Vextar watched the battle through his monitors. Human and wolf forces moved together with perfect coordination. When humans provided covering fire, wolves flanked the enemy. When wolves created distractions, humans struck from unexpected angles. "Captain," Cressison reported, her crystal body flashing with urgent colors, "we are losing ground positions. Should we retreat to orbit? No, Vextar snarled. We are superior hunters. We will not run from primitive animals. But even as he spoke, Vextar felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Doubt. Inside the ship's prison section, the captured humans heard the sounds of battle. Dr. Lee Minjae pressed her ear to the cell wall and listened to the rhythm of explosions and weapons fire. That's not just alien weapons, she told the others. I hear human gunfire. Someone is fighting for us. Park Hyun-woo looked up with hope in his eyes. Do you think they can win? I think we need to help them, Minjae replied. When that door opens, we fight. In his separate cell, Jiho had been counting the power cycles of the energy barriers. The Gyar, flickering pattern was becoming weaker as the ship's systems diverted power to weapons and shields. Soon, very soon, there would be a moment when the barriers failed completely. He caught Somi's attention and held up 3 fingers, then 2, then 1. The barriers flickered and died. Jiho lunged forward and grabbed Somi just as Bayek burst from his own cell. The wolf's first instinct was to check that his family was safe. His second was to lead them toward freedom. But freedom was not going to be easy. Alien guards rushed toward their section, weapons charging with deadly energy. The corridor ahead was filled with enemies, and behind them lay only more prison cells. This way, Jiho whispered, following back as the wolf's keen nose found a maintenance shaft. The 3 of them crawled through the narrow space while laser fire burned the air behind them. The shaft led to the ship's central hub, a massive chamber filled with machinery and alien technology. At the center stood a pillar of pure energy that seemed to power the entire vessel, but the chamber was not empty. More guards were positioned around the energy core, and their escape route was blocked. Worse, the chamber was unstable. The battle outside had damaged key systems, and pieces of the ceiling were beginning to fall. Stay close, Jiho told Somi, as they hid behind a large machine. We will find another way out. Beck sniffed the air and whined softly. His ears were flat against his head, and his whole body was tense. Something was very wrong. Above them, a massive support beam groaned, under the stress of battle damage. The metal was cracking, slowly giving way to forces it was never designed to handle. Somi looked up at the sound and saw the huge beam directly over her head. Cracks were spreading across its surface like spider webs. Daddy, she whispered, pointing upward. Jiho saw it too. The beam was going to fall, and when it did, it would crush anything beneath it. They had to move, but the guards were still searching for them. Then the beam gave one final groan and began to fall. Time seemed to slow down. Jiho reached for his daughter, but he was too far away. The massive piece of metal fell toward Somi, like a giant hammer, and there was no time for her to run. But there was time for Beck. The white wolf did not hesitate. He did not think about his own safety or calculate his chances of survival. He saw his little girl in danger, and he acted. Beck launched himself through the air with all his strength. His powerful legs carried him in a perfect arc that put him directly between Somi and the falling beam. The impact was tremendous. The beam struck Beck with crushing force, driving him to the metal floor. But his body absorbed the blow that would have killed Somi instantly. The little girl was thrown clear by the impact, bruised but alive. Beck lay trapped beneath the twisted metal, his white fur stained with blood. His breathing was shallow and painful, but his ice-blue eyes sought out Somi's face. Beck, Somi cried, crawling toward her injured friend. Jiho reached them both, his heart breaking as he saw the extent of Bayek's injuries. The wolf was dying, and they all knew it. But even as his life faded, Bayek continued to protect them. With his last strength, he nudged Somi toward a damaged wall panel that led to an escape route. His eyes never left her face, filled with love and fierce protection even in death. Good boy, Jiho whispered, his voice breaking. Good boy, Beck. You saved her. You saved our girl. The alien guards had witnessed everything. They stood frozen, their weapons lowered, staring at the scene before them. Captain Vextar's voice came over their communicators. Report. Have you captured the prisoners? The guard captain, a scarred veteran of 100 hunts, looked at the dying wolf and the grieving humans. For the first time in his military career, he did not know what to say. He had seen prey animals protect their young. He had seen predators defend their territory. But he had never seen one species willingly die for another species' offspring. It made no sense according to everything he had been taught about survival and evolution. "Sir," the guard finally replied, "we need you to see this for yourself." Other alien prisoners throughout the ship had also witnessed Bayek's sacrifice through security monitors. The crystal being Cressisin felt something crack inside her rigid worldview. The insect warrior Hezrak's mandibles trembled with confusion. On Earth, the battle was ending. The combined human and wolf forces had destroyed the alien ground base. Rangers and wolves stood together among the wreckage, victorious but somber. Guriam lifted his muzzle and howled, a sound of grief and pride that echoed across the mountains. Somehow he knew that his son had done something magnificent. In the ship's central chamber, Somi held Bayek's still head in her small hands. Tears ran down her face as she whispered to him, "Thank you, Beck. Thank you for saving me. I love you so much." The white wolf's eyes closed for the last time, peaceful and unafraid. The alien guards continued to stare, their understanding of the universe crumbling around them. They had come to Earth to prove that bonds were weakness. Instead, they had witnessed the strongest thing in all creation, love that conquers death itself. Captain Vexistar stood in the central chamber of his ship, staring at the scene before him. His yellow eyes, which had seen 1,000 worlds conquered, could not look away from the small human child crying over a dead wolf. The massive alien captain had come to see what his guards could not explain. Now he understood their silence. Somi sat on the cold metal floor with Bayek's head in her lap. Her tears fell onto his white fur as she whispered words of love and gratitude. Jaiho knelt beside them, one hand on his daughter's shoulder, and the other resting on the wolf who had saved her life. "Why?" Vexitar asked quietly. Jaiho looked up at the towering alien. His eyes were red with grief, but his voice was steady. "Why what? Why did the animal sacrifice itself? It could have escaped. It could have lived. Because he loved her," Jaiho said simply. "Because she was his family." "Family." Vextar repeated the word like it was foreign to his tongue. "But you are different species. You share no blood, no common ancestors." "Family is not about blood," Jaiho replied. "Family is about choice. Bayek chose to be part of our family. We chose to be part of his." The alien captain's scaled hands clenched into fists. "This makes no sense. In nature, only the strong survive. The weak are abandoned. This is the law of evolution." Somi looked up at Vextar with her tear-filled eyes. Beck was not weak. He was the strongest wolf in the whole world. He was strong enough to die for someone he loved. Those words hit Vextar like a physical blow. He staggered backward, his mind reeling. Around the chamber, his guards watched their captain's reaction with growing confusion. Vextar had always been their symbol of strength and certainty. Now he looked lost and broken. "Captain," one of the guards said carefully, "what are your orders?" Vextar did not answer. He was remembering something from long ago, something he had buried deep in his memory. He was remembering his own young killed in a raid by enemy hunters. He had let them die because saving them would have put his own life at risk. It was the logical choice, the strong choice, or so he had told himself for centuries. Other alien hunters began arriving in the chamber. Hezrak clicked his mandibles, nervously as he saw the captain's condition. Cressisin's crystal body dimmed with uncertainty. "What has happened here?" Hezrak demanded. "We have made a mistake," Vextar said slowly. "A terrible mistake." Dr. Lee Minjae and the other human prisoners had been brought to the chamber under guard. They expected to see their friends being tortured or killed. Instead, they found alien hunters standing in stunned silence around a scene of grief. "What is wrong with them?" Park Hyunwoo whispered. Minjae studied the alien's body language carefully. As a former military officer, she was trained to read the enemy. What she saw surprised her. They look confused, she said. Like their whole world just changed. She was right. The alien hunters were experiencing something they had never felt before. Doubt about everything they believed. Cressisin approached the grieving family slowly. Her crystal voice was softer than usual. Human child, why do you cry for an animal that is dead? It cannot hear you now. Somi wiped her nose with her sleeve. I cry because I will miss him. Because he was good and brave and I loved him. But crying will not bring it back to life. No, Somi agreed. But crying helps me remember how much he meant to me. It helps me honor his sacrifice. The word sacrifice rang through the chamber like a bell. The aliens had heard it before, but they had never understood its true meaning. Mordak, the four-armed hunter, spoke up. On my homeworld, we had legends about creatures who died for others. We thought they were just stories to teach younglings about foolishness. Perhaps, said an old alien called Grixwell, the stories were not about foolishness. Perhaps they were about something we forgot how to understand. Vextar walked to where Jiho and Somi sat with Bayek's body. The massive captain knelt down, bringing his reptilian face close to theirs. Human father, I came to your world to hunt your kind. I believed you were weak because you formed bonds with other species. And now? Jiho asked. Now I do not know what strength means anymore. Vextar stood and activated his ship's communication system. His voice carried to every alien vessel in the fleet. All hunters, this is Captain Vextar. Cease all operations immediately. Release all prisoners. We are leaving this system. Protests erupted from hunters throughout the fleet. Captain, we have not completed the hunt, Hezrak objected. The hunt is over, Vextar said firmly. We came here believing we were superior predators. We have learned instead that we are ignorant children. He looked down at Bayek's still form. This creature understood something we have forgotten in all our centuries of conquest. True strength is not the power to kill. True strength is the willingness to die for those you love. The alien guards began releasing the human prisoners. Families reunited with tears of joy and relief. But in the central chamber, one family remained, incomplete. Jiho carefully lifted Bayek's body in his arms. The wolf was heavy, but Jiho's love made the burden light. We will take him home, he told his daughter. We will bury him in the mountains he loved. Somi nodded, her small hand resting on Bayek's white fur one last time. As the humans prepared to leave the ship, Vextar approached them again. There is something you should know. Your world will be marked as forbidden territory. No hunter will ever come here again. Why? Jiho asked. Because you have taught us that there are things more important than being the strongest, more important than winning. The alien captain paused, struggling with concepts that were new to him. You have taught us that some bonds are stronger than death itself. 3 days later, Jiho and Somi stood on a mountainside overlooking their favorite camping spot. They had dug a grave for Bayek under a tall pine tree where he used to like sleeping. In the shade, Ranger Doyun and other friends had come to pay their respects. The wolf pack stood at a respectful distance led by Guriom, who had lost a son but gained understanding of why his son had chosen the life he lived. As they placed the last stone on Bayek's grave, a small sound made Somi look up. A tiny wolf pup emerged from the forest, lost and alone. Its fur was white like fresh snow and its eyes were ice blue. Daddy, look, Somi whispered. The pup approached them without fear, as if it somehow knew they were safe people. It sniffed at Bayek's grave, then sat beside Somi and looked up at her with complete trust. Jiho smiled through his tears. I think Beck sent him to us. Somi gently picked up the pup and held him close. What should we call him? How about Hope? Jiho suggested. As they walked down the mountain with their new family member, neither of them saw the small alien observation probe that watched from orbit. Vexitar was keeping his promise. Earth would be protected, but he continued to watch because he was still learning. Learning that strength came in many forms. Learning that love could conquer death. Learning that bonds between different species were not weakness, but the greatest power in the universe. In the depths of space, the alien hunting fleets changed course. They were returning home with stories that would change their civilizations forever. Stories about wolves who died for human children. Stories about bonds stronger than blood. Stories about a small blue world where creatures had learned the secret of true strength. The galaxy would never be the same. And in the mountains of Earth, a new pup played in the snow where his predecessor had once run, carrying on a legacy of love that would never die.